Mac here with you on Birds 365 after a gut-wrenching loss to the Seattle Seahawks. We're here to talk about it with you, and we get help, good help, from our buddy Andrew DiCecco from InsideTheBirds.com. Andrew, I want to start on an optimistic note, if that's okay with you.
Sure thing.
Oh, you found the one, huh?
Yes, I did. How about that Braden man? He's a heck of a punter.
I thought you were going to say Britton Covey with his 15-yard return.
Britton's rock solid, man.
Yeah.
Britton's rock solid. I don't know if you heard us going back and forth, but we're given, reasons for the win and loss. James Bradbury obviously having a very poor season. Jalen Hurts, the regression, I think, is troubling over the past number of games. Trying to hit the home run all the time instead of taking the layup, Andrew. But I got to tell you, and I'm going to blame myself here. When it comes to assessing a loss like this, nobody talks about the head coach on this team still, even after this week, which to me was an abject disaster, the way he handled this week leading up to this game. Why is Nick Sirianni getting a pass when everybody's crapping on Sean Desai? They're crapping on Brian Johnson. There's a freaking guy at the top in charge of it all.
It's weird, right? He almost seems like he's absolved of any sort of blame or culpability here, right? But his fingerprints are on everything, guys, as you know.
Everything. Yeah.
It's his offense. He calls the shots. He brings these guys. He has a hand in bringing these guys in. And it just seems like, you look at it, Matt Patricia, Sean Desai was a scapegoat. Let's call it what it is. But I just think that all these other things going on sort of deflects. He's able to sort of takes the spotlight off of Sirianni. But, and he's a year removed from the Super Bowl, which certainly helps his case there. But I think as we move further away from that, guys, and you start to see the dysfunction and the regression across the board, it's hard to take the spotlight off of Nick Sirianni eventually. I think it starts and ends there.
So let me ask you about the response that he gave, because it was the first chance anybody got a chance to question him about the decision that he made to replace his defensive coordinator. And again, good for the broadcast that kept giving shots of Desai up there in the press box. At least he wasn't eating a hot dog, which was good. That would have been a really bad look. Who knows what the hell the responsibility breakdowns are, but the coach took it all. He said it was all me. It's all my call. I felt I needed to do it. He didn't expound on why 4 days earlier he said there was absolutely no problem, but then all of a sudden it was a big enough problem that he's going to make this drastic change. Were you buying what he's selling? Do you think it was all him, or do you think he was influenced to make that change?
Personally, I've think, and I've always thought that he was influenced to make that. I think someone helped him make that decision. Now, would he ever admit that? Obviously not. But and John, you and I have had a lot of conversations about this in the past, as far as the ownership and their influence on making some of those decisions. And to me, guys, I think that that was handed down from above, because when he spoke to John and everybody that was in attendance that day on Tuesday, I believe, he intimated that he had no plans of swapping out coordinators.
No changes.
And then he said midweek he decided to change that. So to me, I think that maybe somebody tapped him on the because you had Sean Desai speak to everybody on Wednesday. So I think somebody tapped him and said, "Hey, look, this is the direction that we're going to go." And Sirianni said, "Yeah, let's do it."
Yeah, in hindsight, he made the change, I believe, after Sean spoke, before shifting the practice on Thursday. Remember, they had a walkthrough.
Yeah.
Everything was pushed back a day because of the Monday night. And we all thought, well, that's weird. And they got the pads on. That was clearly when he made the change. Now, I'm the first to throw Jeffrey Lurie on the buyer when it comes to scapegoating people, because he's got a history of scapegoating people. So I get why people ask that question. But I'm going to go, this is all Nick Sirianni. Now, when you make a decision like that, you do have to get the approval of Howie Roseman and Jeffrey Lurie especially. But no, I'm blaming this on the head coach. And because Jody said he explained He said he didn't want to tell us before the team. He said competitive advantage, and
Competitive disadvantage.
I know what a lunatic he is with competitive advantage, and I'm using that adjective properly. A nut when it comes to that. He believes it, and hey, he has the right to believe what he wants. I think it's dumb. Everybody else thinks it's dumb. He believes it. Yeah, I think it's all him. I think it's all him. Now, if they continue down this road and they're one and done in the playoffs, say, there will be more scapegoats, and then Jeffrey will probably get more involved. I think this is all Nick Sirianni. I'm not blaming Jeffrey Lurie. I'm not blaming Howie Roseman. I think this is all Nick Sirianni.
The optics were pretty bad. I mean, at the end of the day, it really looked like merely rearranging chairs, rearranging deck chairs. I mean, and the message that sends to your locker room. I mean, I don't know. I mean, my understanding, guys, and you could take this as a lack of confidence, but Sean Desai was viewed as a coach who would take the input from his players and ask, hey, what do you think about this call? Hey, what do you think about this? And some players seem to like that because you're getting them involved and you're asking for their input. Now, that can also be perceived as a lack of confidence. I mean, you're the coach, but I got the sense that he was a coach that was a little bit more, he involved a lot of his players, which I thought was interesting.
The one thing I'll kind of disagree with you on, could it have been all Nick Sirianni's line of decision? Yeah, that is a possibility, and that's what he said. So we have to accept it until
you don't have to accept that. He says because he lies to everyone,
right?
So you don't have to accept it. I'm not telling you have to accept it because he has no credibility now. On top of it,
yeah, it does. Right. It absolutely hurts his credibility. But I'll disagree with you on the timing. This is a pretty social media friendly squad that they got here. They got a bunch of guys that use Twitter and podcasts and everything else. I had no bloody idea this came down until Sunday morning when Jay Glazer said it. Either one of you guys have any inkling that? Are you telling me they practiced all day Thursday and Desai was no longer calling the plays? Patricia was on Thursday, and then whatever walkthrough they had on Friday. It never got out. I keep it under wraps.
I pride myself on picking up small details, but that one I did not see coming at all.
Yeah, nobody saw it coming. Nobody saw it coming. But even Jay, people forget Jay said they quietly made the change earlier in the week. Mm-hmm. Now Nick told everybody to keep it in house. That you can give him credit for because everybody did a good job with it, and nobody went off the reservation from that perspective. So, you could say he's still got the guys together, because just because he tells them doesn't mean they can't, text one of us or take us off to the side and say, look, there's some things going on, and everybody stayed on the same page. So that's probably a good sign. But Jay said, no, he did it earlier in the week. So it didn't happen on Sunday.
That was Sunday morning. Earlier in the week could have been Saturday.
Yeah, it could have been, but it was Thursday. It was Thursday. I'm confident now as guys gotten to talk a little bit about it. It was on the practice on Thursday when I think might have been Kelsey said it or might have been Bradbury. One of those two said it last night that it was, it was the practice. It was the shift in the practice was the signal. And for somebody like me, I should have picked up on that practice more because I thought it was weird at the time. And they did it while we were at the complex. They did it. They shifted. We got a text message. Hey, we're practicing. It's going to be open for 10 minutes or whatever. And it's not normal. And something not normal happens. But they were struggling so much. She said, "Well, maybe they need some work."
So let me see if I understand this, John. Matt Patricia decided that they were going to have practice.
No,
not Sirianni. Oh, so Sirianni did. Sirianni decided that because if you're going to install Patricia as the defensive play caller, he needs it. I'm trying to follow the line of logic as to why practicing on a day that they don't usually practice tipped off the fact that they were going to make this massive coaching change.
It didn't tip it off at the time. It tipped it off in hindsight, and then the players. Again, I'll try to figure out who said it. I think it was Jason, but they said it. Yeah, they knew Thursday. That's when they were told. That's when they were told. And then the players were able. And again, now I can look at everything in hindsight. I talked to Jason on
Friday, I think. He
was it
spoke
Friday?
Yeah.
I talked to Jason on Friday and I asked him straight out, what do you think the change in practice was? Was it about messaging or was it about getting the younger players work? And he was very un-Kelsey like. He was very short. He was very terse. And he said, you're going to have to ask Nick that. So now I look back and I go, well, I should have had the radar up further there because that's very un-Jason Kelsey like. Who's, gives you everything from a media perspective if you ask him. And he didn't want to talk about it because he didn't want to get in trouble with it. He didn't want to say something he shouldn't have said. So in hindsight, it's pretty clear that's when they made the change.
And oh, by the way, did the change affect anything last night for you,
No,
Andrew?
no, not at all. It was the same struggles on the back seven. They fell apart late in the game, and teams looked to pick on James Bradbury, and they didn't really have an answer and how to help him out. So to me, I didn't see anything overly intricate or anything different from what we've grown accustomed to seeing.
By the way, Andrew, getting back to on the field issues, what does it say that they're picking on James Bradbury when Kaylee Ringo and Eli Ricks are out there? What does it say about James Bradbury?
I think what we're seeing is a steep decline in skill set, and teams are pouncing on that. I mean, even last year, John, I can recall a play where Bradbury got beat cleanly off the line by Rashid Shaheed for 50 yards. In the Giants playoff game, the play didn't go to his side, but Marcus Johnson beat him for what would have been a big play. This year, he's just getting beat, and the pass rush isn't getting home, and they're not able to marry the pass rush and the coverage. So you're seeing a lot more teams looking to exploit Bradbury, who does not run really well, and he doesn't have the long speed to catch up there. And teams are just taking advantage of it. I mean, guys aren't doing anything overly intricate at the line of scrimmage. He's just getting beat cleanly. He can't keep up.
And I've been saying this for 2 weeks running now, and I'll stand by it. I think it was the exact same last night. Which was worse, the front four or the back seven? Well, it wasn't even the back seven. It's the back one, James Bradbury. Yeah, he was the worst. No question that he's the worst. They didn't get pressure again last night. Now, this is not we cut Josh Sweat a bunch of slack the last 2 weeks because he's going up against Hall of Fame potential left tackles. Who's Seattle's left tackle? Who's the guy who Josh Sweat couldn't beat
Charles
last
Cross?
night?
Charles Cross.
I'll bet against him making it to the Hall of Fame. You want a piece of that action? He'll be a Hall of Famer. No, the Seattle offensive line coming in was like at best average. Some would call it below average. And they did nothing last night. Jalen Carter had one great series. He blew up a running back, completely puts his man into the backfield, into the running back, and he got the sack on the ball that the Lock tried to throw, but his knee was down. He did nothing. Hassan Reddick did nothing. Josh Sweat did nothing. This was supposed to be the best unit in the National Football League, and they couldn't pressure Drew Lock last night.
Jalen Carter had that big rush late that Pete Carroll tried to help the Eagles on by calling the timeout.
It was a sack. He
Disaster
had one
on
great
his
series. Jalen Carter had one great series, and other than that, he was a non-factor. And their stud star ends were non-factors.
I will say on Cross, I want to defend Cross. He's their best offensive lineman, but yeah, he's not Trent Williams.
You know what's troubling
if you don't have your left tackle as your best offensive lineman, what the hell are you doing?
Well, obviously, the Eagles invest heavily in the trenches, but there's been so many instances this year, guys, where we've looked at the Commanders matchup, the Jets matchup, this matchup, where the defensive line should be able to feast and seemingly get back on track, but they're not able to do so. And I think that is a byproduct of not having able-bodied depth, right? That you can plug in there. You're seeing a lot of they were very reluctant to play Nolan Smith until they absolutely had to. The defensive line.
Hurt his shoulder, by the way. Andrew.
Yeah, I was going to text you, John, because you and I were talking about that, I feel like a week ago. The younger defensive tackles and Jordan Davis and Jalen Carter haven't played a ton of snaps, and I feel like they're showing signs of lethargic play, and you're seeing that manifested on the field. I mean, this is a tired group when they don't seem to have the adequate legs that they need at this point in the season. You hate to say it, Jody, but Derek Barnett, he didn't provide a whole lot, but from a depth perspective, somebody that can step in there and give you adequate snaps. I mean, I think that's missed.
Well, what was missed was Howie's opportunity to get a better player than Derek Barnett, and he didn't. That's on the general manager.
By the way, Derek Barnett had a sack for Houston this week. Big DB.
Yeah, I almost texted you, Jody, about that because I was like, hey, look, man, DB's breaking out.
DB, baby.
Okay, yeah, he's breaking
out. As they make the run towards the playoffs.
Now, I'll say this. I think that if you want to see a drastic change in the defense, I mean, there's no reinforcements coming, but if I'm the Eagles, I'm looking to sit James Bradbury down and maybe insert Keely Ringo and Eli Ricks as your starting corners on Christmas Day against the Giants.
Whoa!
Get them the reps and let them kind of work through any kind of growing pains. But I think that they're going to have to lean on those two guys down the stretch until Darius Slay comes back.
Wow. Yeah, I'm not going to go that far. I'm not.
Well, look, you and I like JB. We talk to JB a lot, but the regression is certainly.
No, he's having a bad year. I mean, I'm not trying to shield James Bradbury. He's having a bad year. But both of those guys, like I think people get too caught up without the context because they both played pretty well in coverage last night. Now, I said to Jody on that Kenneth Walker touchdown, they pushed Eli Ricks into Puget Sound. I mean, that was pathetic run support.
And what about when he tried to make the tackle on the one play and he threw the guy forward for a yard, I guess, because he's just not an overly physical player, which is why he wasn't in on early downs when he was playing nickel.
Now, I think they both did pretty well in coverage, both a lot more than I expected, but you do have to put in that's Drew Lock. It's not, and next week it'll be Tommy DeVito. So you'd have the opportunity to do it and probably not get hurt. But I think long term, boy, I don't know if those guys are ready. I think it's good that they're getting them some reps and they have to with Slay out. If Slay was back, and Slay was there, I'd feel more comfortable. All right, maybe give Ringo a shot, give Ricks a shot, whichever way you want to go. But boy, without him, I can't have both of them out there.
Oh no, I'm not suggesting long term, but you can get away with it against the Giants.
Oh yeah, well you can get away with,
but certainly not in the playoffs.
Yeah, you can get away with Andrew DiCecco and Jody McDonald at cornerback this week.
Mile marker number 5 and mile marker number 21.
Be careful. Tommy Cutlets has made some plays. Don't know.
I'm not too worried about Tommy Cutlets.
All right. Prior to last night's game, who would you have been more worried about, Tommy Cutlets or Drew Lock?
Drew Lock by a million years. Drew Lock is at
played
least
a lot more football. A lot more football.
Yeah.
I'd take.
I wasn't concerned with either. I mean, I'm not saying, but Drew Lock he's got better skills. I mean, and you saw that throw. That's it. You see some of these guys, and I brought up Jake Browning. They're not good quarterbacks, but they can make NFL throws if you give them the opportunity to make NFL throws on occasion. They don't have the consistency. That's why they're not starting level quarterbacks. But they got burned by Drew Lock, and they shouldn't have. And that was a really good throw. I mean, people lose that part. They never talk about the other team. He saw what he had and single coverage, and he threw it to the back pylon, and that was a heck of a throw.
Both of those throws, the 34-yarder to DK earlier in the drive was tremendous.
Yeah. So, I mean, yeah. Is he going to do that consistently? No. You saw him play a whole game, but that particular throw was not exactly a bad throw. So you do have to add that into the equation.
Andrew, I need your comment on a comment that Jalen made after the game, just being asked about the game in general. He said, we need to be more committed. There's a lot of different ways you can take that. What was your overall, and I know I'm just giving you a quote, quasi out of context, but quote unquote, we need to be more committed. What do you think he means by that?
Yeah, he said that after he mentioned execution, which he mentions after every game. But if I was trying to glean something out of that comment, Jody, to me, it would be more like cohesiveness, trying to a buy-in, maybe staying together, and which is, you don't usually hear Jalen Hurts say anything noteworthy in a press conference. So I thought that was really really pertinent, and it made my made my ears perk my ears up there. But I mean, he didn't really elaborate much off of that. So all we can do is really speculate. But for me, the first thing I heard of when I heard that was buy-in from the collective team.
All right, let's throw Howie Roseman onto the pyre a little bit. What the heck is Rashad Penny doing here? What the heck is Albert O doing here? What the heck is Shaq Leonard doing here? I mean, they had to start a linebacker, but when it comes to Shaq Leonard specifically, because the other guys aren't even involved, it's just a matter of Shaq Leonard had to start at linebacker. But they want big nickel or three safety look, whatever you want to call it, if you want to call it dime, for the vast majority of the game, because they don't want Shaq Leonard out there. Why? Other than fans don't like Christian Ellis. It's not a big deal, but Christian Ellis would be here for years at least as a good special teams player, cost effective. That's what the Eagles preach. Blah, blah, blah. You get injuries, you get injuries. It's not their fault Nakobe Dean got injured. However, the Band-Aids. I got a problem with the Band-Aids when the Band-Aids don't work. And the Band-Aids aren't working. And people go, oh, Julio made a big reception. Did he? He's 6 receptions in how many games? Kevin Byard hasn't bit, really, to a significant degree. I think he's playing a little bit better. But I don't know if that has more to do with Drew Lock and the Seahawks offense than anything else. But Shaq Leonard,
28 snaps. And I'm old enough to remember the Shaq Leonard sweepstakes and folks lobbying for him to come to Philly. And
wow, he was a great player. Great player.
Once
before the back surgery.
Yeah, before injuries. And he was available for a reason. I mean, the Colts walked away from a significant chunk of money. That's very telling right there. But I don't know what the Eagles or what many expected they were getting in Shaq Leonard. You're getting, on paper, you're getting a serviceable player who's logged a ton of snaps, a former All-Pro, but he doesn't have anything left. And you saw that. I mean, that was particularly evident, guys, on that Kenneth Walker touchdown run. Really hesitant, slow to react, stiff. It just doesn't have the wheels anymore, man. I don't know. I'm to your point with the Band-Aids. Braden Mann has been their best in-season acquisition.
Braden Mann, yeah.
Bradley Roby's been okay. Julio Jones has been a non-entity. Kevin Byard, I thought that he was going to be a plug-and-play, big-time player, but outside of the Chiefs game, he really hasn't made an impact on the defense. So it's fair to start looking at some of these in-season Band-Aids when they're not plugging the wounds.
Wow. When you grouped all of them together, it all of a sudden sounded like, what the hell, how he been doing? Because he's been taking more swings and misses than he is making solid contact into the gap. That's not good. The punter. By the way, the punter upgrade. That'll get you to the February game.
By the way, I don't want to pick on, and I don't even know who asked him the question, but somebody asked Shaq the question yesterday on how he prepares for a game with a new defensive coordinator in midseason. I mean, he just freaking got here. It's not
what are you supposed to say?
Yeah. But anyway, I digress. From the standpoint, there's so many things to complain about this team today, and a special edition overreaction Tuesday. I do think, though, when I get through it all, and I said this to Jody, and I want to run it by you, Andrew. I think the defense played well enough to win. They're never going to be great. That's for the offseason. They made some mistakes personnel-wise. They think they made a mistake coaching-wise. They have to fix that stuff in the offseason, maybe scheme-wise as well. For now, this is what it is, and you got to make the best of what you have. I thought they played well enough to win the game. I'm blaming the offense more than the defense. Agree or disagree?
No, I agree. And obviously, Matt Patricia, he wasn't able to do a whole lot. Your personnel was your personnel, but I thought he was really creative in his personnel groupings and rotating guys in. Patrick Johnson didn't play a single defensive snap all season. You worked him into the rotation. Keely Ringo, Eli Ricks, Sidney Brown, they just added some fresh legs and energy to the defense. I thought there was a lot more physicality and flowing to the football. And I thought they got off the field when they had to, John. So I agree with you there. Offensively, you have so much talent there to only muster 17 points against the Seattle Seahawks, which is far from a Legion of Boom, is inexcusable. So I think at what point do you have to start looking at, and you and I have really been supporters of Brian Johnson, but you're seeing a regression and an offense that has yet to evolve. And we are now 14 games into the Eagles season. At what point do you start saying, okay, I mean, we have to start looking at the offensive coordinator as well?
Last night, we didn't know if Jalen Hurts was going to play before the game started. The separate flight out to Seattle within hours, we knew that he was going to at least give it a go. Should he have? Is it even fair to, in 2020 hindsight, look back and go, yeah, if he wasn't 100%, maybe he made a mistake, maybe the team made a mistake.
Marcus Mariota might win that game.
Right. I feel like you can't even think it if you believe Marcus Mariota does not belong on the field. But is there the littlest sliver of maybe they should have considered going a different direction?
John, I defer to you first.
No, I'm letting Jalen Hurts play. I'm not second guessing that, but I can second guess after saying, would Marcus Mariota would have won that game? I haven't seen Marcus play at all this year. I've seen him play enough to know that, yeah, if he brings his A game, he probably could have won this game. But you don't know if he's bringing his A game. Same as Drew Lock, same as Jake Browning, same as any other backup quarterback you want. A little bit more experience, obviously. Could he have won that game? Yes. But will I second guess the Eagles on that? No, I can't. No. He's a starting quarterback.
Yeah, I mean, in hindsight, it's fair to question, but there were plays to be made in that game, and they still could have won the game nonetheless. So I don't second guess that decision. He's your starting quarterback, and Jalen Hurts at a fraction, at I don't know, 30 or 40% is better than Marcus Mariota. Jalen's one of the best quarterbacks in the NFL. So I think that was the right decision.
But Andrew, is not James Bradbury your starting cornerback? You're ready to move on from his ass pretty quickly.
Yeah. Listen,
night.
And some context there. John knows, and anyone who's read my coverage over the couple of years know that I'm a big Bradbury guy. I think he's a really smart player, and the way he's able to win has always been really remarkable to me because he doesn't have the athleticism. He's really smart and technically sound. But if I'm telling you that that he might need to take some snaps off, I mean that's saying something.
Yeah, that's Andrew DiCecco. Make sure you follow Andrew on X, Twitter, formerly known as Twitter. InsideTheBirds.com does a tremendous job for our buddies Jeff Mosher and Adam Kaplan. So check him out there. Where do we end this thing? I guess I'll end it with Nick Sirianni again, because you mentioned it's time to start thinking about Brian Johnson as the coordinator. Boy, is it? I mean, first of all, the fact that he needs to be asked that question, and that question needs to be asked because he has no credibility. This is the first time in 33 weeks that the Eagles haven't been on top of the NFL standings, or at least tied for the top. They are now behind San Francisco officially. So it's first time in a long time, Andrew. He's gotten away with a lot of this stuff because winning cures everything. But whether it's the stuff on the sidelines, whether it's screaming at opposing fans that isn't like, whether it's blatantly lying to reporters, and people say, well, reporters, Johnny Mack gets upset. Who cares? That's where you're getting the information. They're talking to you through us as the fans. He's lying to you. Eventually, I'm going to figure it out. I'm going to find out. It might be later, but eventually I'm going to find out what happened. He's lying to you in the moment. Now you can say competitive advantage, he's successful, but the minute you're not successful and you have no credibility, Joe Torre taught me this, the old Yankees manager. He said, you know what? Treat people well because they'll give you the benefit of the doubt. If you don't treat people well, that fire under your butt is going to heat up very, very quickly. We are seeing issues with Nick Sirianni as a head coach for the first time. Do you agree with that?
Absolutely. From across the board, from pillar to post, and from decision making to personnel to coaching hires, I think that the focus is inevitably going to slowly shift over to Nick Sirianni, because once you start running out of scapegoats, John, as you know, it becomes, you start looking at the head coach, and that's where it all lies.
Yeah.
All right, Andrew, my last question is a good one for you because you can't possibly be wrong with it, because it's subjective and it's your own personal way that you look at things. Expectations change. They change in season. They change basically from week to week in this league. In a league where you only play 17 games, the outcome of a game in one of 17 can actually change your perception, change what your expectations are of the team.
Mm-hmm.
What are your expectations of this Philadelphia Eagle team right here, right now?
Well, I inevitably expect them to look a lot cleaner against games against the Giants and the Cardinals, but you have to trust what you've seen for 14 games, right? It's not about what you do against inferior opponents. It's what you do against the top 15% of the teams in the NFL. That's what you're based, that's how you're graded. And what I've seen from the Eagles this year is a team that has a ton of imperfections and flaws, and they have yet to really correct that. And until they're able to do so, I don't expect them to just turn it on in the playoffs against a worthy opponent. I think that it's going to take a big effort for the Eagles to get right here, and I'm not totally sold that they're going to be able to do so.
I think that's fair, and I'm sure there are some Eagle fans don't want to hear it because they don't agree with you and I that you can change your expectations and your perceptions. If you start the year Super Bowl or bust, you finish the year Super Bowl or bust.
Yeah, I mean, look, things change.
I'm looking at bust. If that's the case, I'm looking at bust right now.
Yeah, things change. Look at the 2018 season. That's the first one I go to with that. That was high expectations, and that kind of got derailed pretty quick. So
people use that term, Andrew. So I'll sneak one last one. Legitimate Super Bowl contender. Who is other than San Francisco? Maybe Baltimore.
Baltimore. Maybe if you're reaching, they're the 0-2 after you saw what happened at Dallas the other day.
I mean, yeah. So I mean,
might say Miami after this weekend. Miami and Baltimore play each other, which I think is great because that will determine who the best team in the AFC is. Their offense is. Their defense, I question, but their offense, and I know the Eagles slowed them down. That was when
Buffalo
somehow Sean Desai,
I'd
that exiled defensive coordinator, was able to at least keep the Miami offense somewhat in check.
That's right.
I'd be more afraid of Buffalo than just about anybody if they get in the hands.
They're starting to play their best football when it matters most. So that's a team to keep an eye on.
Yeah.
Oh, you mean the Bills, who, yes, the Eagles also. See, that's why this is such a confounding season about the Eagles. They've gotten good wins. They've got good wins on their resume. And then they have fall on their face losses like last night. Andrew, great stuff. You know, we love you whenever you come on the show. Thank you much for doing it today. We'll punch you back up when we get closer to playoffs.
Always enjoy talking to you guys. Have a good day.
Thanks, Buzz.
Both a contributor.
Boy, I got to tell you, there's two things. Andrew, as he mentioned, is a big James Bradbury. Well, I think we all are.
So
big,
you know me. I was lobbying for the Eagles to get him when he was still on the Giants roster, when he was only being rumored to become a cap casualty. I'm going, if this guy hits the open market, the Eagles have to jump like a frog and get on it.
Yeah.
Wow, he was
a great guy, accountable. He was accountable last night. But he's slipping. He's slipping from a physical standpoint. So when somebody like Andrew starts saying, maybe it's time, and me, I've been a big Nick Sirianni guy, and doing some stupid shit over the past week, to put it bluntly. You know, not good, not good.
Not good at all. And their loss last night in Seattle is painful. Now, when we come back, I'll go over it is going to be annoying to Eagle fans, but you got to deal with it because reality's reality. Last night's loss compromises their playoff possibilities. I could have told you prior to last night's game, I don't see San Francisco losing. I think they're going to be the number 1 seed. So now, them being the number 1 seed, we're down to under 3% chance they're going to be number 1. So forget about that. But winning the division is still within their grasp. We'll go through some of that next here on Birds 365.